After a long battle in court with the NCAA, Indiana football starting safety Lewis Moore is finally eligible for the 2025 season. It's about damn time.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Thank you so much for being here. This is a little bonus episode for you as we are recording this as the news breaks. Indiana starting safety Lewis Moore is eligible to play for the rest of the 2025 season. If you've been following along with this story, you know how big of a win this is in several different aspects here. This is a win for Indiana football because, again, you're starting safety who has started all 4 games for you so far this season as the Hoosiers are out to a 4-0 start, top 15 team in college football. You don't lose your starting safety at a spot that you're already pretty thin due to a couple of season-long injuries and another guy that just hasn't been able to work his way onto the football field. This is also a win for Lewis Moore himself, your starting safety who has been in this battle with the NCAA and in the courts all over the country for months now. This has been something he's been dealing with since the spring. And if you're unfamiliar with this story, just to give you a quick synopsis here really quick. Lewis Moore has played at a couple of P4 schools. He's played in Indiana. He's played at Ole Miss. He's also gone down and played at the JUCO ranks. He played 2 college years in junior college before coming back up and bouncing around and eventually finding his way back here to Bloomington. Well, he ran out of eligibility, or so he thought, and then the Diego Pavia rule became a thing, and he decided, you know what? I think I kind of fit that mold. I think that I can use that rule. I think it applies to me. And the Diego Pavia rule is if you play junior college D2 ball, anything not Division I college football, right, that's covered by the NCAA, it shouldn't be counted against your eligibility, which is what Diego Pavia said when he was at Vanderbilt and is still at Vanderbilt. And that's what Lewis Moore tried to say as well. But of course, you're dealing with the NCAA, and they're on their own clock, they're on their own schedule, and they don't really care how you feel or that your life or your career is hanging in the balance. And so they took their time. You went through the spring, you went through the summer, you even went through the fall as well, and there was no answer. Lewis Moore in Indiana did not know whether he was eligible to play or ineligible to play. And so Indiana took matters into their own hands, and they said, you know what, NCAA? Until you tell us he's not eligible, we're going to see him as eligible. And that's exactly what they did. He practiced every single day. He didn't miss practice for this. He was with the team. He was a part of the rotation, and he earned himself yet again as the starting safety for the Indiana Hoosiers. And then the season came around, and it was like, well, we still don't have a decision from the NCAA. So what are we supposed to do now? He was supposed to have hearings along the way and meet with judges and lawyers and attorneys and all this jazz, all this mess, right? And those just kept getting pushed back. And then they had one, and then they had to push back another one. And it was a disaster altogether. So him and his lawyer found a judge in Texas that said, yeah, I'll sign off on this because that's ridiculous that the NCAA won't grant you eligibility. So a judge signed off and said, well, while you're waiting, I deem you eligible. I deem that the NCAA can't do anything against you and tell you that you can't play football. So to get back on track here, Lewis Moore played the first 4 games of the season without the NCAA telling him that he could or not because a judge signed off on it. Well, on Wednesday afternoon and into Wednesday evening, the decision was made. Lewis Moore is now eligible to play the remainder of the season for Indiana, according to a Texas judge on Wednesday afternoon. He was awarded, and I'm going to read this verbatim so I don't mess the legal jargon up here. He was awarded an injunction against the NCAA after being denied a 6th season of eligibility and basically went after the NCAA because of it. It says that he was given an injunction, which basically tells the NCAA they are not allowed to hold Moore accountable for those 2 years in junior college. They can't use those 2 years against his eligibility. The NCAA is not allowed to do that, according to this judge in the state of Texas. So it doesn't say that the NCAA has to give him eligibility. They just can't say he's not eligible, which may sound kind of crazy in a weird, really big gray area, and it is. But at the end of the day, this is a victory for everyone involved except the NCAA, and good, because I have thoughts on them in just a moment. This was the right call. This was the right decision. And what's unfortunate here is the NCAA didn't even get to make it. They had a chance to do the right thing, and they decided they were going to drag their feet. They were going to screw over a young man, and they decided to let this play out in court. And you would think they've learned their lesson by now by not allowing it to do that, because their track record's not all that great, and they lost yet again. I have more thoughts on the NCAA in just a moment, but the good news here is that Indiana starting safety will play the rest of the season. He was the leading tackler for you against Illinois. He was the best tackler for you against Illinois, according to PFF. He had 6 tackles, no misses. He was the highest graded tackler on the team. And in a spot that I mentioned is kind of thin right now, you've had to move some guys over. You've had to get some help from other positions, right? You're having to use some nickel and rover and strong safeties and move guys around back there to keep it all together. This is huge news for an Indiana defense that's one of the best in the country. This should have happened way, way before this. This never should have gone this far. But the good news is Lewis Moore is eligible to play for the Indiana Hoosiers, and he'll suit up on Saturday against the Iowa Hawkeyes. I have more thoughts on this, and it's more so going to be a rant about the NCAA and how much of a joke it is. So stick with us. We're going to be right back here on this Locked On Hoosiers bonus episode. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers, this bonus episode of Locked On Hoosiers, is brought to you by Mazda, okay? You can just move through life, or you can find the things that move you. It really is your choice. You can choose to get out there, choose your people. You can choose to go for it, like really go for it. Just choose to do something that moves you. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. Mazda, you can move and be moved. Today's episode also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Isn't that what you want? Don't you want to have control of all your finances again? You can do that with Monarch Money. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. Today's bonus episode of Locked On Hoosiers is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, welcome back to this bonus episode of Locked On Hoosiers. And not going to keep you too long in this final segment. I really just want to remind folks that the NCAA is a joke, that the NCAA is a worthless organization and one that needs to be put in the ground and just needs to go away and disappear, at least in the aspects of large universities and large programs and big-time athletes and coaches, because the NCAA was put in place all way back when to represent the universities and the student athletes that competed at those universities. That's what it was there to do. It was there to be a third party representation to kind of keep everything under control. Well, they lost that control about 5 years ago, and it's only gotten worse. And this Lewis Moore situation is a perfect example because they realized with NIL and transfer portal and all the other things, they realized they screwed up because they had a chance to do those things the right way. They had a chance to slowly roll those out, right? For those of you in manufacturing or in production and things, like when a new idea happens, you don't just throw it on the factory floor and hope that it works out. You don't just throw it out to the world and hope they buy it immediately. No, you slowly roll it out. You kind of get a feel for it. You kind of have some little tweaks here and there, and you try to perfect it along the way. But the NCAA didn't do that because they didn't want to give up control. They didn't want to give up power. And they knew that their days were numbered. So they held on and held on and held on. And they finally gave in. And then all hell broke loose. And that's exactly what happened with NIL and the transfer portal. And this Lewis Moore example or this situation is a perfect example of how they've lost complete control. Because anytime that somebody doesn't agree with the NCAA, they just sue them to oblivion, which is what Moore did and his lawyers did and his legal representation did. They went and found a judge in Texas that said, hey, NCAA, and gave them a middle finger. And they won because of it. The NCAA has no stones. They have no backbone. They have no argument anymore. And we need something new for college athletes. We need something new for college athletics. I think there's a world where the NCAA could represent smaller schools and smaller athletes. But schools like Indiana, P4, G5, the NCAA is not the answer. The NCAA can't control it anymore. And they continue to get laughed at and embarrassed on the national stage. And this was another prime example. I hate that it got to this point for Moore, but I'm glad that he found a lawyer who could help him. I'm glad he found a judge who could help him. And I'm glad that he's going to be eligible to play for the rest of the season. I hope you enjoyed this bonus episode of Locked On Hoosiers. We got a ton more content coming out for you the rest of the week. This is a daily spot for all things Indiana athletics. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a like and leave your thoughts down in the YouTube comments. Tell me how you feel about the NCAA, maybe in one clean but colorful word. I can't wait to see what you have to say. Subscribe to the channel, like the video as well. And then if you're on audio, make sure you follow us and turn on those notifications so you never miss a new episode. We post a daily show, 25, 30 minutes every single day right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Okay, we're back tomorrow for a full episode, Hoosier fans. So stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.